Got another draft profile video, and we're back to the defensive line, but with a name that maybe doesn't get a ton of attention because there's two players that kind of take that attention from him, in Romello Height and also David Bailey, and that's Lee Hunter out of Texas Tech. So let's get right into it. A big defensive lineman that's lined up all over the place for Texas Tech. Plenty of experience as well. This is a 5-year senior. Didn't play in his freshman season with Auburn. Transferred to UCF to follow his coach there. Played plenty there. And then this past season transferring to Texas Tech. Productive consistently over the past few seasons, including this past season where, according to Pro Football Focus, 2 sacks, 5 quarterback hits, 19 hurries, and that included a 10.6% pass rush win rate as well as an 11.9% run stop rate, which is absolutely incredible. Listed at 6'3" and 5'8", also 330 pounds. I think this is a player with his length, depending on where that measures in, could be a little bit unique for this year's drafts and really for recent drafts as a player that could potentially fit into a 2-gapping style defense that could really hold his ground at the point of attack, play multiple gaps. But as mentioned, he's lined up everywhere on the defensive line for Texas Tech, from the defensive end position outside of a tackle all the way to head up over a center. He's been all over the place for that defensive line, and he's racked up a ton of snaps, which I think is very important to mention. Over the past 3 seasons, over 500 defensive snaps. Now, we saw Texas Tech this past year at times kind of pull back because they were just blowing teams out. But that said, he played a lot. He racked up snaps, and he was a guy that motor-wise just continued to bring it play after play. I think that was one of the most impressive traits about it for a guy at his size, to just continue to bring it play after play after play. He wasn't super heavily rotational. Start there first with his ability against the run game. And the biggest standout to me is it's not as much of the explosiveness upfield as, to me, it's more so of the great reactive quickness off the ball, the reactive quickness to pullers, how fast that he settles his feet down, gets himself balanced, creates a balanced base width. I think that's more of the game of Lee Hunter than really anything here up front, which is why it could translate well to being able to hold his ground in 2-gap, but also getting and playing upfield. And his quickness translates really well to the interior because he's usually quicker than everybody he's matching up against, and he's getting hands-on first. And then when he kicks out a little bit wider, he has the quickness to lean on when he gets in some of those defensive end roles. He's got plus lateral quickness to mirror the wide zone, especially when he's working over the center. And the big key there is he's able to work and continue to play square to the line of scrimmage. He slides over gaps with a nice little swim move. He's got some real slipperiness to getting upfield consistently. Now, his pad level is going to be a question mark, and this was a little bit hit and miss on entry. It wasn't immediately creating knockback all the time, and I think, like as we saw against Arizona State, double teams gave him a problem occasionally. I think really just the posture that he played with was inconsistent. Did see the ability to drop his pads and get underneath the pads of offensive linemen oftentimes and create some initial knockback, but as we saw against like down blocks, for example, his base didn't always feel like it was actually creating a great leveraged opportunity to continue to create knockback, and combo blocks we felt like at times would kind of just hold its ground. He had the balance and the contact balance to kind of just absorb contact at the point of attack, but he didn't always play with the pad level and the entry in terms of leverage to feel like he could create a consistent lockout at the point of attack, unless maybe he was taking that first step to get downhill and winning to the point of attack initially. But he quickly gets his hands out to wall off down blocks. He leans on the center immediately off the ball, creating a lot of stress, and a lot of times not playing much further beyond the line of scrimmage, especially closer to the ball that he is, maybe 2 yards beyond the line of scrimmage at worst it felt like. He has finishing movement skills, which is great for his size, especially when you get him out in space. One of the biggest traits for his game will be his agility, his body control. It's surprising for a guy at his size. He redirects really well. He's not on the ground super often outside of a couple double teams and some down blocks where he gets turned a bit sideways. But outside of that, in space, he's seemingly never on the ground. He redirects incredibly well for screens, and we've seen him work well in space with a pretty good motor. Now, his closing speed is not outstanding. He does move pretty well and change directions pretty darn well. He consistently slips upfield past blocking entry. I just, again, feel like he needs to get leveraged a little bit quicker. At times, he feels too vertical. He also can feel like he's a little bit hunched over. For me, one of the biggest knocks that I have for that get-off is more so the depth covered. I don't feel like he covers a lot of ground working upfield. He's quick, and he gets out in a hurry, and he has good reactive timing, but he doesn't feel like he actually stresses upfield aggressively enough because he doesn't cover a lot of depth within his footwork. And I think the wider you get him, the more you feel that when he's trying to actually get an edge. Doesn't feel like he consistently can because he doesn't have some of that depth to make those offensive guards and tackles really work their range as often, working vertically. And you'll see that even when he does get an edge, the inability to consistently close and finish from those spots. I think it's some of that is he just doesn't cover that much depth. Pace balance to me is a little bit more consistent the closer to the ball it feels like, where things are happening a bit faster. And again, I think posture is going to be a huge part of that, to positioning and leveraging himself a little bit better in the base. That way he can avoid getting pushed off a spot initially at the point of attack, because he does recover well, but he will get moved off a spot, and occasionally will get him slids a little bit sideways. But speaking of, I do think he has good footwork for an anchor to deal with combo blocks. The the biggest thing is here there's real flexibility. He doesn't play the lowest, but he has real bending flexibility to kind of redirect his lower body, create a little knee bend, corkscrew, settle a little bit of an anchor down, keeps his pads down for single blocks when he's able to work upfield. I think that's very effective. That allows him to sustain his pad level when he gets off the ball with low pads. And I think you see a lot of the endurance there. He doesn't feel worn out all the time where he's just standing straight up. It's just inconsistent when he does this. But you do see against single blocks, he has a real ability to get underneath pads and win immediately off the ball. And I think that's a huge part of some of that two-gapping potential upside that he can have because he does really well consistently against single blocks. And I feel like his pad level is much better in those spots with a little bit of more room to work with than immediately getting hands on contact. He unlocks his hips for force really quickly. He's got good balance to absorb blocks and continue working with a consistent base width. Gets walled off at times by down blocks where his pads get a little bit higher through the rep, his base gets a little bit skinny, and that tends to get him into trouble. But he runs his feet through knockback when he's working single blocks. His feet are active. He runs his feet backwards, and he does this holding his ground as well. Very active feet, base width against single blocks. I think that's why it'll translate well for him as well. Impressive bending flexion, as mentioned, as guys are trying to sustain and drive blocks. And he's very agile to slide past blocks. And the biggest part of this is he stays on his feet a lot when he's getting himself upfield. You feel the contact balance. You also see the body control and the footwork. Doesn't get on the ground very often. His footwork is square for zone blocking entry. Overall, I think there's a lot of upside here for flexibility up front. And then for the hand usage, an area that I do really like him, he's got fast hands. Now, again, he gets hunched over, and that kind of loses some shock at that initial point of attack, and he'll feel like he'll kind of get walled in a bit there, and his downhill entry gets caught inside, but he quickly does replace his hands on the front side of a zone blocking scheme. We saw that against Oklahoma State. Real surprising ability here for me, and his ability to actually get after the quarterback. At first, it started off a bit slow, but the more you watch, I think the more you become impressed with his capabilities here for what you would expect of him at the next level, and that's a guy that consistently can keep himself clean and find the ball. That's going to translate to consistency. He may not constantly actually win as a rusher, but you're going to get some effort wins, you're going to have a feel, and you're going to have an ability to work some stunts in games and kind of take guys out of the play. For me, he doesn't, again, cover a ton of ground upfield, and his initial knockback isn't overwhelming. However, he does create real force through the upper body. He's got a little snap in the upper body, and again, he's got some of that hip-hop as well. I just don't think that his walk-back positioning is fantastic to consistently just drive guys back into the pocket. Sometimes you'll see some build-up with a long arm where he can create some knockback, but I don't feel that a consistent walk-backing nature where it feels like he's playing a bit skinny. You don't feel the consistent positioning leverage, and it feels like it stalls out even with active feet. That's probably the most disappointing element over everything. He doesn't feel overwhelming in that area. Downhill body control, he can shift his weight, he can stay on his feet, he gets upfield with some knee bend, he can redirect laterally. He's great against screens. He handles these really well. He's got a feel for it as well when screens are being set up to get himself in a play. Saw against UCF, I believe it was picked off. He kind of tackled the guy before the ball got there, but he was aware of it, he felt it, and he got himself in a good spot. Good lateral quickness. He's got an excellent feel for screens, as mentioned. He has really good vision into the backfield to find the quarterback and read through it. And again, contact balance, which allows him to keep working. I think a big part of this is a lot of times you just want a guy at his size to wall off, keep himself clean, and just find the ball for some contain opportunities. That, I think, is going to be a translatable part to his game. Now, how often can he get his hands on the ball? That's probably the next step that I would like to see is a lot of tip passes at the line. Short area foot quickness, can get an edge. His slither, to me, is a little bit wide, and he doesn't close as well as I would have expected. When he does get an edge, he gets an edge plenty, but he doesn't feel like he can actually close on a lot of those opportunities, which is disappointing. But you do feel like there's counter footwork there because of some of the agility. Active footwork downhill. He's got dancing footwork at the top of the rush, and he's got a powerful core that can get an edge with flexion to turn a corner. He just doesn't finish in those spots consistently. But from a hand use perspective, I love the punch to rip. There's fluidity there. He's got pretty powerful in the upper body. He doesn't reset a bull rush incredibly well. When it stalls early, if it's not initial knockback, it doesn't reset much. And for me, he gets a lot of early wins, but you don't feel a lot of resetting and finding wins where he's going to drive you back as the play rolls along. You just don't feel that, which is disappointing as well from a play strength perspective to be overwhelming at his size, especially with some of his length as well. His lateral crossover is a bit limited because he doesn't cover a ton of depth. It's smooth, but he doesn't cover a lot of ground, so he doesn't actually cross face that well. Hand perspective, plus length, he can separate, find the ball. He just doesn't keep his pads consistently clean early. There's times where he'll get kind of jabbed and latched, and you don't feel him actually keeping his hands and his pads clean. I do like he's got really good grip strength. He's powerful in the upper body, loves to get to the push-pull move, tight hand placement when he does get into pads. He kind of leverages himself right into your chest to create some control. He's got a good jolt in the upper body. He just doesn't have a ton of twitch for me from block to block. It's less explosive, more fluid as a mover. He needs more violence to me and aggression when he's going to his hand swipes. You feel it. You feel timing. It feels well connected to his footwork. It doesn't feel overly overly violent, though. He has an immediate plan for connecting his feet and his hands, the swim, the swipe move. They're all smooth as a rusher. But again, to me, he struggles to get a long arm inside, actually under pads consistently, back to the posture issues and just the way that he does walk back. And also, he is less efficient finding breaks points once he does get latched, resetting and finding a win once he does get latched. He can win early. If he can get an edge, he does the rip move. He's got very fluid hand usage, but if he does get latched, how is he going to consistently show that violence to break and continue to reset and get back into the play outside of just kind of backing himself off and finding the quarterback? Because right now, that's kind of what it feels like that counter is. But he does have a tight entry for a walkback upside. He continues to work that lockout for a scrambling quarterback, and his punch to swim is very fluid with timing. His motor is in a good spot. He stacks plays. Like, he plays a lot. I was impressed by that. Overall, Lee Hunter, to me, it's going to depend on how you want to use him. That's going to really determine how you're going to grade, I think, this player. I think he has two gapping upside. I think that's what he could be very capable of. There is flexibility. I think you're going to have to use him more on the inside, but I think that capability is there, and that's the excitement. He can rack up a ton of snaps. He's a smart player, even higher than that. Great body control. Close to great agility as well. Like, those things translate. He can shed at a good ability now. It can be improved, though. I think more shock, more posture will help him. His hand use is in a really nice spot. He's got the motor, the discipline to do it. He's just not overly dynamic in terms of explosiveness, but he is very controlled. And to me, his play strength is in a good enough spot where you feel like there's flexibility for upside across that defensive front. Overall, for me, I like Lee Hunter. It really took a while for me to kind of fall in love with the player. But that said, I think the right fit is a team that allows him to hold that ground, lock guys out, read through multiple gaps, and then continue to work as an effort rusher on early downs, motor that continues to find the ball, creates lockout, uses his hands well, continues to kind of refine that ability to shed, and gives you a lot of flexibility up and down the front, whether you want to put him outside of a guard, inside of a guard, over a center. There's going to be a lot of, I think, 3-0 technique flexibility, maybe even wider than that if you want to mess with it. So for me, veteran player. You wonder maybe something about the upside being a 5-year senior, but he is a lot of fun to watch. My initial grade was a 5.9, and I think in the right fit, you can get closer to a 6.11 grade, and that's where I'm going to land with him right now as kind of my final fit for him right now. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Lee Hunter out of Texas Tech. Thank you, Brett, for watching, and I'm out.